Consult Asia delivers cutting-edge training to empower people to achieve their maximum potential. Engaged in developing and delivering customized learning and development programs specializing in leadership, business, sales, and life coaching. True to its name, Consult Asia works with partners worldwide in Asia, North America, Europe, the United Kingdom, and Australia. All from diverse industries: hospitality, tourism, banking, real estate, retail, direct sales, legal, manufacturing, and oil and gas. Consult Asia closely works with partners in their people development and business enhancement programs to achieve their business goals. And the Consult Asia global team is just as world-class. Consultants and facilitators, coaches and mentors are industry experts from distinct backgrounds and cultures. Consult Asia delivers only high-quality training solutions and proactively pursues strategic alliances with global firms and consultants to stay ahead in the industry. Consult Asia Global, the world's preferred training group.
Hi everyone, good evening from the Philippines. My name is Tinette Cortez and welcome to tonight's episode. Welcome to my Facebook Live. And tonight we have a very special guest for this episode called Crossing Borders. Just to give you an idea why I decided to organize this FB Live, it's because the guest that we have tonight is such an inspiration to all of us. Bata man o medyo hindi na bata, we will be gathering a lot of insights, a lot of life lessons, a lot of inspiration and hope from this person. So before we introduce our special guest tonight, I first would like to greet my very good friend from the UK. Hi, Emma Dudley. She says, amazing. Thanks for watching, Emma. Emma is a very dear friend of mine, and I'm glad that she's watching because, again, yung mga, sorry, hindi pala ako dapat pwede magtagalog. The guests that we have tonight, as well as my co-host, are all based overseas, and they have a lot of stories to share, especially our special guest. And of course, I'd like to say hello to Vicky Tan. Hello, Ma'am Tinette Cortez. Hi, Vicky. Thanks for watching. Okay, so before we introduce our guest, I first would like to introduce my co-host for tonight, a fellow Oxonian, and of course, one of our associates and drivers at Consult Asia Global UK. I'd like to call in Aris Aquitania. Aris, hello. Where are you? There you are. Hello.
Good afternoon from the UK.
Good evening. Hi. Good evening from the Philippines. Ayan. So, Aris, would you like to say hello to our viewers, both in the Philippines and outside the Philippines?
Yes, good afternoon to our friends who are tuning in from the UK, from the rest of Europe, and of course, good evening to our kababayans in Asia, not just the Philippines, and good morning to our friends from the Americas. So thank you once again, Tinette, for giving me the privilege to be your co-host for tonight's show.
Of course, Aris, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with me tonight or today in the UK. And Aris, again, this is part of our campaign for Consult Asia Compass, and maybe after our conversation with our special guest, you can share a little bit about Consult Asia Compass to our viewers so that they have an idea how to move forward with us. Okay? All right. Ready ka na ba, Aris?
Ready na.
Okay.
Excited na ako.
Okay, so guys, our guest for tonight is an absolute gem because aside from being young, ouch, much younger than me and Aries, okay, he is truly an inspiration. He's originally from Pampanga, and his story is really interesting, and he's going to be sharing a lot with us tonight. But his educational background is, I wanted to really, wow, I don't know how I would react now, but also he finished his Bachelor of Science in Industrial and Labor Relations from Cornell University, and he took his master's in science in public administration at Cornell University. Sorry, MBA again. Sorry, MBA as well in Cornell also. And of course, he took his master in science in migration studies at the University of Oxford. And he's now a graduate student with a degree in international relations with distinction. And by the way, in Cornell with distinction as well. And currently, he's a graduate student with a degree in international relations with distinction again from the University of Cambridge in the UK. And he's also earned a certificate in migration studies from the European European University Institute in Florence, Italy. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the Managing Director of Rights Corridor, Mr. Froilan Malit Jr. Hello, Froilan. Come on
Hello.
in.
Yeah.
Hi
Thank you so.
there.
Hello.
How are you? You see, guys, he's a very shy and very, calm person. And you wouldn't really even think that he's this person, Aris, no? Tama ba?
Oh, very unassuming, very humble, and yet very deep, very
I
brilliant.
know, I know. Okay, Frylan, how are you? Where are you now? I know you're in Dubai, and kumusta? Kumusta ka dyan?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in your show. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm really happy to be here. And I'm currently in Dubai, working on my dissertation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really excited to share all my experiences, life experiences, and professional experiences to all of our viewers. And thank you, Iris, and thank you, Tinette, for having me
Yeah,
again.
you're very welcome, Frylan. Actually, you have fans from the Oxford Philippine Society, and of course, you know who your fans are. Ito yung mga bigatin sa OPS, di
Yes.
ba? And of course, we'd
Yes,
like to say,
of course.
I think siya yung, I mean, he was actually texting me last night, excited siya for this episode. So, Froilan, as I've mentioned earlier, we're really very, very interested to hear your story first, no, as a child, because not everybody has this kind of story. I mean, most of the Filipinos who are probably listening to us right now are interested. What's so special about Froilan Malit? So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Mhm.
Parang Mr. Universe lang.
So, yeah. Um, I, so I don't even know where to start.
Siguro childhood mo muna, Froilan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you really into studies? Kasi I was just blown away with your academic background. Have you always been a studious child, I guess?
I think it all started with my parents' decision to migrate internally in the Philippines and outside.
Mhm.
So my father, he's a daily laborer. He was a construction worker, and
Mm.
he initially worked as a farmer, and then he had to move to the southern part of the Philippines and to earn money and to help us out. And my mother actually migrated to San Francisco in I think in somewhere in the late 1980s, and so the family really separated from there, and I think that really shaped my childhood experience. And I ended up living with my grandparents in Pampanga, in Lubao specifically,
Mhm.
and then they became our custodial parents. And so technically, we didn't really grow up with our parents. I think their absence really shaped our views in life, and even the passions that I created, and as I evolved actually over time. So I grew up with my grandmother, my grandparents in particular, and it was a tough time actually for all of us in the early 90s. We had to work in a flower farm sa mga sampagitahan actually.
Wow.
And what's interesting is that the remittances that we received from my father and from my mother actually were not consistent. And we also had to adjust actually in the rural areas of the Philippines. And remember sa mga sampagitahan, you really had to pick flowers early in the morning because you need to pick them before they bloom, right? At 7 o'clock in the morning. So we had to get up literally at 2 a.m. in the morning. We had yung mga lampara, we had the lamp, and there were tons of risks, possibly snakes, and we couldn't really see, and we had to inhale a lot of kerosene. Alam yung lampara na hawak-hawak namin. We really had to go through and really search for these flowers. And I think these experiences were also shaped by the kinds of weather then sa Pampanga, laging umuulan. So if there's more rain, it means there's less flower, less income for us. There's more sun, more flowers, and sometimes like they would lower the prices, and I think that would really affect the kind of income that my grandmother and us actually, my siblings and cousins, would receive at that time. And I think this kind of childhood experiences that we experience Lubao, Pampanga, really shaped and has given me how to live a life with massive scarcity, and it really taught me to understand competitions, even sa sampagitahan, because we had to compete with so many younger kids and even older filmmakers, and it's time bound, no? Hanggang 7 o'clock lang yon. So you really had to pick all of them. And actually, yung ginawa ko nun is I had to pick all these flowers from 2 hanggang 7, and I would go to school. And then in the around afternoon, we would, tinatahi namin yung mga bulaklak, and then we would actually ship them up so we can earn more additional income. And I think that kind of livelihood, that perspective, really shaped my understanding of work, the world of work, labor relations, and coordination even to family. And I think that really affected and even led me to choose all these academic paths actually in career choices. That's why I ended up pursuing migration, labor, etc., which I will share even more. So,
All right.
yeah.
So from a young age, you already had this discipline, this work ethic, and the appreciation for the values of hard work, really.
Absolutely, Eric. I think we had no choice at that time. And I think our grandparents really ensured that we understood our responsibility. Be it cleaning sa bahay, paglilinis, paglalaba, and even helping them earn. Because we had to adjust to different economic shocks. Sometimes yung parents namin will be able to send money. So we really had to find ways because there's a lot of us. My aunties and uncles' children, they were also living sa loob ng bahay namin. There's roughly 12 of us. So collectively, we had to think strategically in terms of how can we actually survive. And I think that kind of values, it was really instilled in us. And nung time na yun, wala namang social media, walang Facebook. So we really focus a lot on our responsibilities, plus our academic obligations to perform well for school. And really, I was also expected to perform well, despite the work that I was doing. And I think a lot of my friends when I was younger, they weren't, I think they had an idea of what I was doing, but I don't think they really grasped yung responsibility na ganon at a young age. And sa akin, I didn't feel poor at all. I mean, I felt very trained, very disciplined, and I think my grandmother really taught me that kind of perspective that helped me thrive in different academic or professional spaces, both in the Philippines and outside. Yeah.
It's amazing, Froilan. So, how old were you when you started doing the sampagita picking and selling and all that? Gaano ka
Wow,
kabata?
I was 6 years old. Yeah,
6!
6. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
So
my
you were starting your day at 2 a.m. and you had to go to school as well, and then probably
Yes.
sell until 7, as I understood.
Mhm. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and I think during that time we didn't really question, right? Because I think if you look at it now, I mean, there's a lot of international labor laws that would say no, that's not possible. There's a lot of legal limits pagdating sa labor law, child labor. But at that time, like especially some rural areas of Philippines, it's a way of
Mm-hmm.
life, and
Yeah.
you have a responsibility, and also you feel compelled to contribute because you're part of the family, and you want to help out, and you don't want to see your grandparents or your cousins struggling collectively. Especially in times of yung mga umuulan, where there's less flowers, less income. And I think yung collective suffering na ganon, collective responsibility, really shaped me as a person. Yeah.
Right. That's
And I guess this is a 7 days a week type of schedule. Walang pahinga to, I imagine.
Mhm.
Yes, and you know what's interesting sa pagitahan is that you only get 10% of the income. So for example, yung alam mo yung isang tabo ng bulaklak, right? If the buyer kapag binibili niya yon sa landowner, let's say 10 pesos, you get 1 peso or 2 pesos. You get lucky if you get 3 pesos. Per tabo yon. And that takes 25 to 30 minutes to fill up. And sometimes during rainy season, it's much less. So this would mean that you have to wake up early and you have to fight harder to get as many flowers as possible. And I think that kind of like survival perspective really helped me cope, no?
Yeah.
Especially in hard times. Because I think
Yeah.
yung perspective known as, well, I've had it worse. So yeah.
But
Right.
Froilan, I mean, that's really very. I mean, at 6 years old, I mean, other kids at 6 years old, naglalaro pa lang, or,
Yeah.
nasa bahay, pinagsisilbihan ng magulang, and they're just learning to probably read and write, and mag-grade 1 pa lang, and ikaw, you already learned a lot of life skills at that young age, no? Now, I'm sure, Aris, you would agree with me when I say that not everybody would end up thinking like Froilan, like coming from that kind of background, waking up in the morning at 6 years old, having to, work and then go to school. Siguro yung iba, nag-give up na. Mommy, ayoko na mag-aral, no? Or ayoko na, pagod na ako, sa bahay na lang ako, magbarkada na lang ako. What made you, or what kind of mindset did you have? I mean, or what sort of habits did you have that led you to, to again pursue, studies, in such prestigious schools? Paano? Ano yung turning point? At what age ka na umalis?
Initially, I didn't really consider studying outside. Actually, I was looking into all the top universities, Pilipinas,
Right.
and when I entered high school, I especially yung final year, yung fourth year, I've heard about yung UPCA, yung sa Ateneo. I'd never heard of these universities. I mean, I've seen it on TV, yung mga artista or even politicians like Miriam Defensor, where they graduated. So I was really drawn and really inspired. But I had no idea kung ano yung process na yun. Kasi if you come from a village or barrio sa Pampanga, for example, you wouldn't have as much access relative today. Nung time na yun, in the early 2000s. So I even applied sa Ateneo. I remember I just showed up sa mga entrance exams. I had no idea yung klase ng preparation that you have to do. I was literally rejections after rejections. And that really killed me. I knew I had a potential. I got rejected at Ateneo, for example, right? I mean, I know I had a potential. I just didn't know na may process na gano'n. And I could have prepared more. I think that really destroyed me. And it took some time sa lola ko to really help me understand and gain a more broader insight sa nangyari
Mhm.
sa akin ng time na yun. And I think I did that kasi I wanted to break yung generation of struggles and poverty that my parents,
Mhm.
grandparents, I wanted to reset that trajectory. And
Mhm.
I've always been surrounded by people na nag-graduate ng high school, some associate
Mhm.
degrees, but they've never really attempted to push yung boundaries na yun in front of them. And
Mhm.
I guess one of the things that nag-push sa akin is yung exposure ko sa television, no? I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of highly successful Filipinos sa mga
Mhm.
TVs, even mga politicians, of course, the GMA, Gloria
Yeah.
Macapagal-Arroyo, our former president. I mean, I
Mhm.
heard a lot about yung I was just at Georgetown, etc.
Mhm. Mhm.
Simple ideas na gano'n. I think that really made me deepen yung intellectual curiosity ko na, well, what about this possibility? And I think yung exposure mo rin sa economic inequality, I think that really triggered
Mhm.
me, especially yung
Yeah.
mga kasama na sa barangay, for example, or even yung mga neighboring provinces, especially nung high school ako, no? I've seen
Mhm.
mga kaklase ko,
Mhm.
by the way, I went to a Catholic school, and I remember vividly there were many times where I wouldn't even get a chance to take the exam on time because I had
Mhm.
no money to pay.
Mhm.
And yung lola ko had to borrow money, bahay after bahay,
Amazing.
so I could just take the exam. And it was a tough time. But I want to thank yung family na yung Patu family,
Mhm.
especially yung magkasing edad ng lola ko. They really lent her
Mhm.
money for just the exam. And I think that really gave me yung inspiration na yun. Kasi nga, we were cut off
Mhm.
sa mother ko or my father. They
Mhm.
were there, but not really there kasi yung cost of living was going up at that time.
Mhm.
And I think yung economic inequality exposure ko sa mga klase ng high school,
Mhm.
um, that really hit me.
Mhm.
But I didn't
Yeah.
really question yon. Instead, I just kept asking questions and I kept going because I knew that
Yeah.
there's something out there if I keep pushing myself. And at no time na yon, I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I've had it work.
Mhm.
So the only way for me was to go up, basically. So I think yung mga exposures ko gano'n, yung sa mga televisions, sa mga
Mhm.
class ko, yung direct interaction na gano'n, I think that
Mhm.
really compelled me to think beyond. No? And actually, nung hindi ako nakapasok sa mga universities,
Mhm.
I stayed sa Pampanga. I ended up volunteering sa local elementary school namin, yung San Francisco
Mhm.
Elementary School. I
Mhm.
started tutoring children, and I devoted much of my time tutoring. I felt bad kasi nga nung time na yun, you have Friendster, MySpace, I remember.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
a lot of my colleagues would post yung mga nasa UST yung iba, yung mga nasa Diliman, Lasal,
Yeah. Yeah.
and nasa bahay lang ako. Seriously, I got stuck for 9 months. But I think that moment, yung 9 months na yun,
Mhm.
it gave me a window of opportunity to rethink about what I really, really wanted to do.
Mhm.
And it also led me to better understand yung mga passions ko, mga questions ko. I just spent
Yeah.
time reading and really volunteering. And by the
Mhm.
time my mother reconnected sa amin when I was, I think, 15 and a half, no, nung 10 kami, and then she continued yung communication around 15 and pinetition ako
Mhm.
and my siblings to migrate.
Mhm.
I think yun yung time na, I think this was around 2005, when we moved to California. I really
Mhm.
thought things would get better kasi nga now, if I didn't get the chance, the opportunity to pursue these, or maybe sa America, maybe I would be able to do this, and maybe I'd be able to reconnect sa mother
Okay.
ko. It was
Okay.
tough kasi nga, I come from a very working class family. So, since sa nanay ko, sa California, I mean,
Mhm.
I barely saw her. She was working 3 jobs,
What was
basically.
that like? I mean, I'm just curious. What was that like when you moved there at 15? Teenager ka na
I,
nun, so Did you have
Mhm.
was it easy for you to adjust
It was a tough
emotionally,
time.
physically,
And
Yeah,
the
socially?
culture as well is very different to probably the
Mm-hmm.
environment you grew up in.
Yeah.
I think it was a tough time, and partly because I wasn't able to articulate myself properly, and I couldn't even write essays. So initially, my mother wanted me to pursue LVN, which is yung, di ba merong certified nurse assistant, you have licensed vocational nurse, and you have yung RN.
Mm-hmm.
So she wanted
Mm-hmm.
me to pursue licensed vocational nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And yung 9 month window ko noon,
Yeah.
when I didn't get into these universities, I think that really helped me um, develop my interest in politics, actually,
Yeah.
and labor, which is partly shaped by my childhood experience. And I think when I moved to America, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I struggled initially, so I
Yeah.
had to attend a community college. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to start all over again. Um, and I took a lot of English courses. I worked
Mm-hmm.
part-time jobs. I was cleaning
Wow.
gyms, basically. I was a gardener. I was a sausage product demonstrator. I did all possible um, low-income jobs so I
Yeah.
could pursue my community college education, and at the same
Mm-hmm.
time earn enough money so I can send some money to my Lola and
Mm-hmm.
also stabilize my own financial needs. But at the same time, it was a tough time because my mother, she was working a lot. She was working
Mm.
multiple jobs, and what's interesting to me is like I think there are roughly 8 9 million children left behind in the Philippines,
Mm.
and it's
Right.
interesting when you reconnect with your parents, right? You've never
Mm.
lived with them, so it's
Right.
practically living with a complete stranger, right? And I
Aw.
had to adjust. I think there's a lot of emotional struggles too in time na yon. Kasi nga,
Mm.
I remember my mother asking me, why did I not write letters sa kanya
Mm-mm.
regularly? And I
Yeah.
basically responded to her by saying, well, hindi naman kita kilala. I didn't really know you. I mean, there were cases where I
Wow.
was really forced to sit and write sa mga yellow pad, right? How I miss you,
Yeah.
mother mo. But
Right.
it's basically writing it, and you barely had, shared memories together. So it was a tough
Yeah.
time. But I knew I had responsibilities as a mother call, and
Mm.
a mother
Amazing.
call, and at the same time pursue my education, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked a lot in time na yon.
Yeah.
Again, yung issue of inequality, it's one of the recurring themes that I've experienced
Mm.
actually growing up in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept seeing it, and
Right.
even in the U.S., I've seen even more so, especially
Really.
among working class immigrant, newly arrived immigrant families,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen it even more. So I've lived in Menlo Park, California, which is near Stanford. I
Yeah.
mean, I think what really triggered me there when I initially took my first part-time job, I was a
Mm-hmm.
cashier
Okay.
and
So
the
how were
Stanford
you old by
bookstore.
this
How
time?
old were you that time?
I was, I think, 16 and a half or
My
17.
God, you're
Roughly
so
17, yeah.
young.
So you moved to the US when you were 15, 16?
15.
15?
Not 16,
Mhm.
I think. 16, yeah.
But you
Imagine.
already finished your high school in the
Yes,
Philippines.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm. But
And when
imagine,
I,
Aris, at that time, kasi that's the age na you're trying to establish your identity. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Well,
tapos
a lot of
biglang
changes are
na-approach siya
going
sa,
through. Yeah.
yeah, na-approach siya sa Philippines. Now he has to move to the States, get
mhm,
reconnected to his mom, na he hardly knew at that time. And now
mhm,
he also had to adjust to the cultural,
mhm,
pressures of the
mhm.
US. Kaya, wow. Okay, so tell us more.
So I think I want to go back to this notion of inequality. I mean,
Yeah,
I took my first job as a part-time cashier
cashier.
to Stanford bookstore. What an interesting way to actually see inequality, right? And I was interacting with a lot of students. I mean, I would literally take all their books
Mm-hmm.
and take all the orders. I would scan, etc., etc. And I had yung break. I think it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I sat yung oval na quadrangle ng Stanford. I was
Okay.
drinking my coffee, and
Mhm.
I was just looking at all the students. They were sitting there reading books.
Mhm.
They were happy, riding bicycles, may mga flowers pa, and
Yeah.
they're smiling with their friends. I mean, I
Mhm.
asked myself, like, why not people like me, right?
Mhm.
And why can't I pursue the
Yeah.
same opportunities, right?
Amazing. Amazing.
I think at some point in our lives we would say, aha, right? Why not me? I mean, I did
That's
the same
right.
thing.
I
Okay,
love that.
maybe not as luxurious, kaya yung mga Stanford students, but I think yung part-time job na yon really opened a lot of perspectives sa akin. And you know what I did? I literally went right after my shift. I went to Menlo Park Library and I went online kasi ang time na yun, I didn't have a computer.
Mhm.
And I went sa public library. I started searching about university admission. Nung time kasi yun, I didn't really, I arrived there and I didn't really consider yung pursuing directly kasi nga I didn't speak English well nung time na yun. So my goal was to earn quick money. And
Yeah.
for most newly arrived Filipino immigrants, yung healthcare industry, specifically yung sa caregiving or sa LVN, yun yung easy money. So
Mhm.
I
Right.
pumunta ako doon with the perspective na let me earn money, but I didn't really think about yung like yung continuity ng mga goals ko when I was in high school,
Mhm.
right? So when I
Mhm.
arrived there, experience na naman to sa Stanford. I went to public library and I started searching. And then when I went back the following day, I started asking simple questions sa mga estudyante sa Stanford.
Right.
And they started giving me tips and different ideas. And I think that really, yung generosity nila in terms of sharing experiences nila, yung mga know-how, that really influenced me to
Wow.
look beyond, right, yung typical immigrant integration of newly arrived Filipinos,
Yeah.
or even Asian immigrants, especially sa California.
Wow.
And
Wow.
when I entered yung community college na yon, I realized that this is my shot now. If I had,
I love
not
it. I love it.
had Philippines,
I love your attitude.
it's gonna be my chance. And nung time na yon, I was really young and I had part-time jobs, and my mother gave me that, even though she was absent for most of my life,
Yeah.
she gave me yung space na yon to
Yeah.
really pursue kung ano yung worth ko, kung ano yung
Right.
what I could be made of, no? And initially I started taking English courses. I mean, it came to a point where one of the professors basically said, "You can't write." I mean,
Oh my God. Grabbing challenge yan, ha?
and, yes, and my mother had this. She had a friend. Her name is Sue. She died in 2010. She tutored me. Initially, she read my essay. She asked me, "Can you write me something?" And then I'll give you feedback. And she read it, and she basically said, "Well, you can't write." But after that, she actually trained me consistently. I continued to learn classes at community college, and I took all these part-time jobs.
Yeah.
I kept going. It came to a point where I even founded the Filipino American Club,
Oh my
even though
God.
I struggled to speak English. I was running meetings where I had a lot of grammatical errors, but I kept going.
You just kept going.
And people even tried to constrain me by saying, "Well, you can't lead because you can't speak proper English." You had a lot of issues, writing more, speaking more. But then I told myself, well, I'm not gonna let these minor grammatical errors to stop me from pushing me,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And I kept going and going, and believe it or not, I mean, I transitioned from one organization to the other. So I ended up leading yung UN club namin sa Cañada College. And it came to a point during the second year, I even ran to be the class president of the entire college.
That's great.
Yes, I mean, I think my confidence and the friends that I built around, I think naturally, yung
Yeah.
mga friends ko, really gave me yung confidence na yon.
Yeah.
And when I was about to apply to mga universities,
Mhm.
I consulted to mga fabulous counselors done, and they guided me.
Yeah.
And when I got accepted, um, I told my mother, I said, look, I got accepted to Cornell,
Yeah.
School of Industrial and Labor Relations. She
Right.
didn't really believe me at first. In fact, normally sa mga estudyante sa America, I mean, they get a big envelope and then they
Yeah.
celebrate, right? No, I didn't have that
Mhm.
moment.
Oh,
I didn't. My
Uh,
mother actually thought I was crazy. She didn't even go to work for 3 days because she was waiting for that letter. Because when I told her I got accepted, she said, "You need a psychologist or a psychiatrist." She couldn't believe it, right? And yeah, and I even called Cornell University twice.
Mhm.
I asked
Yeah.
them, did you make a mistake, right? Because I wanted to double check, right? There are no errors at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they sent me the letter, I mean, I was really happy. And I
Yeah.
think I cried actually. I think
Mhm.
all the weight that I've been carrying for 17 years, I think just
Mhm.
vanished. I think
It's
that really
amazing.
gave me
That was
that.
a turning point. That was a
That was a
turning
turning
point.
point. Yes, I think that's a
Amazing.
critical.
Amazing.
Froilan, I just would like to take a step back because you mentioned something really important about
Mhm.
enhancing communication skills. Because when people told you, because I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure that you have a brilliant mind, you have a wonderful work ethic. So what stood out in that story of yours was that they told you that you can't write, and is that
Yes.
Mhm.
a reflection on the educational system that we have or the opportunities that we have, or is it just their English is just different to ours, the way we're taught?
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
the way we construct essays is just different to the rest of the
Mhm.
world.
That's a good.
And
Yeah,
what's your
that's a good
message
one.
for the rest of Filipinos who may not have the
Mhm.
same opportunities as you did, but would
Mhm.
like to also practice the way they speak, the way they
Mhm.
write, how to improve
Mhm.
themselves? Sorry, that's a
Mhm.
long
Mhm.
question, but I was
Right, no,
just,
absolutely.
yeah.
Right, I think it's really interesting to look at comparative educational systems, right, in the Philippines and the U.S.
Mhm.
And I think what can we actually gain from these differences. So when I entered Cañada College, it's actually one of the top community college schools actually in California. I
Mhm.
think when they said you can't write, I think what they meant was that the standard that we have here just didn't match, right,
Mhm.
what you're
Mhm.
expecting. Because you're expected to write original creative essays.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that's something that I feel wasn't really emphasized by educational system natin. Not unless you studied sa top universities sa Philippines.
Yeah.
And what I remember nung time na yon, they had to put me sa mga remedial courses. So I spent 2 semesters taking remedial English courses. Initially, I felt insulted because kaya ko mag-English,
Mhm.
but not to a point where I could really write it. I could articulate myself uh, per, based sa mga audience, right? Sa mga academicians, etc.
Mhm.
And I think that was also a turning point for me. Like I had to really step back and
Yeah.
rethink about my skills. And luckily, mayroong resources na ganon sa California that really helped me refocus. It's basically yung moment na tanggalin mo yung ego mo, just sit, listen, and really focus and write.
Yeah.
Write clearly. And I think yung experience na yon helped me so much to transition sa Cornell, to Oxford, and even to Cambridge. I think these people who hammered me, right, for the right reasons, um, um, again, shaped
Mhm.
my writing skills over time. I think yung standard, I think they impose a high standard, high expectation. And some people actually would just give up. Ganun na lang. They would even pay
Yeah.
attention. But if you want to go through the tough process and you have bigger goals, I think at some point you really need to take these gradual steps and really rethink about yung foundation
Right.
and yung basic.
Right.
And I think that's what I did.
Yeah.
Well,
What was
I
life
wanted to
like?
focus. Sorry, Tina, you
Oh,
go ahead.
okay. No. Was that a follow-up question on his son's statement? Because I really wanted to
okay.
ask what life was like at Cornell for him.
Oh,
But Aries, if
right.
you have a follow-up question on his previous son's statement, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, it's more of I just wanted to make the point that one of
Mhm.
supposedly the competitive advantages of hiring the workforce from the Philippines is our
Mhm.
communication skills. Ayan yung
Mhm.
bentahin natin sa mundo eh. But
Yes.
I think if it's really something that we as a nation would like to focus on, would like to enhance, would like to promote, then we also need to look back, examine
Mhm.
ourselves. Ganun
Mhm.
ba talaga kagaling yung English natin? Or what steps do we need to do so that it, in Asia, for example, we're always up there in terms of
Mhm.
speaking that
Mhm.
language.
Mhm.
Let's say call
Mhm.
center apparently yung isa na sa pinakabentahin natin ngayon eh, as a
Mhm. Mhm.
nation.
Mhm.
Now, Froilan's statement is
Mhm.
probably a little different experience, and I agree with you. Maybe there's inequality even in that level
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
English education in the country.
Mhm. I think no, I think it's an excellent point. I think I want to add additional points here. So when I entered high school sa Pampanga, I went to a Catholic school, and I think the focus was mainly on memorization. Mga exams, even the way they structured my exams on multiple choice,
Mm-hmm.
but not necessarily in writing. And if you think about it, I migrated. I was a teenager. I came out of high school. That's a Catholic school, not even like the main ones, sa
Yeah.
Pampanga or let alone sa Manila. And we didn't really have tutors, or we had an English teacher, but I don't think she really did emphasize yung writing part, in especially in critical reading and
Mm-hmm.
writing. Perhaps in critical reading, but not yung writing. I think that
Mm-hmm.
we didn't really have yung mga after school programs sa
Mm-hmm.
Pampanga. And I remember meron akong na-meet noon nung nasa Cañada College ako. She kept arguing sa akin na, oh, how could you claim na very low yung English mo kung galing ka sa Pinas and you're able to speak na gayon, ng ganyan, sabi niya sa akin.
Mhm.
And I said sa kanya, like, I didn't come from these top institutions, mga
Mhm.
high school, mga private schools sa ganito. And I didn't really have that resources. I really had to
Mhm.
like work myself
Yeah.
pagdating sa mga skills na to. And I think it was there, but I think there's some issues. I think that really actually exposed yung insecurity ko nung time na yon. And yung mga remedial courses, English courses sa mga community college na ganito, I think that I use those to really help me rebalance yung mga gaps na nakita ko nung time na yon. I think sa
Yeah.
Philippines, siguro yung distributional resources and initiatives, especially sa mga rural areas, I think these things need to be addressed. And I think yun yung naging nangyari sa akin could be very different sa mga ibang Filipino. But I think these were the gaps that really forced me to fix them when I arrived to America. I think yung advantage ko lang is I used to listen to a lot of songs. And of course, yung NSYNC, Britney Spears, etc. I was able to get yung accent, but not yung grammar. So when of course we love to sing, right? So when I arrived to California, I just had to deal with the grammatical aspect of it. I didn't need to deal with the English, the accent. So
Right.
it was this transition, no? So I don't know. It could be very different for some people, but I think that's what really helped me nung time na yun and I do wish then yung ma-emphasize lalo yung reading, especially critical reading and writing. And yeah.
Pero Froilan, I mean, listening to you share your story, no, it seems to me that because a lot of people came from the same background as you did, right? So, but not everybody would make the same kind of decisions as you did,
Yeah.
di ba? Again, people are always faced with choices naman, di ba? But you always took the winning actions, di ba? Where do these kinds of strength and tenacity and grit come from? I mean, I know you've mentioned about your lola and all that, but sometimes kasi sa isang family, kahit magkakapatid, magkakaiba pa rin yung ugali, di ba? Some siblings would prefer to just, sit back, relax, and wait for ayuda or help from family members. Whereas here you are at 50, and when you migrated, I mean, some kids would just literally just chill and wait for the parents to come home with the groceries and all. But here you are, taking on this part-time job as a cashier. I mean, where is this all coming from? Because ang nakikita ko dito, meron talagang mindset na meron kang certain habits na pwede nating i-share sa mga viewers natin ngayon. And habang hinihintay mo, habang pinag-iisipan mo yung sagot mo dyan, I'd like first to say hello to our viewers, all right? So we have here, of course, June from Swindon in the UK says, hi, Tanet and Idol Aries. Good evening and good afternoon to both of you. Hi, June. Thanks for watching. And he says he's watching from the UK. And of course, Shanna Estevez says, hi, hi, Ma'am Tanet. Hi, Shanna. And of course, Kim is watching from Riyadh. Kim,
Hello,
thank you for watching us again. And of course, my dear cousin, artista, if you guys know Jovit Moya, pinsan ko yan.
Of course. Hello, Jovit.
Yeah, if you were, like me, Gen X, yan, kilala nyo yan, nasa ano yan, That's Entertainment. Anong group ka ba, Jovit? I think Wednesday group yata siya. And of course, we'd like to say hello to Mildred De La Rosa. Hi, Mildred. And June here says, wow, I can relate to the life story of Froilan. Ayan. And of course, my dear uncle, Tito Jose Roland Moya. Hi, Tanet. Hi, Tito. Thank you for watching us. Ayan. So, Tito, if you're still watching, I mean, you may want to connect with Froilan here because he's going to be a fantastic resource speaker for ECOP as well. Ayan, yung my Tito kasi is the Director General of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. So definitely, I will connect you, Froilan, to my uncle so that you guys can probably collaborate. Okay, so I want to hear some of your insights. Aris and I are actually going to be happy to learn from you firsthand. Ano tong mindset mo? Ano tong mga habits mo? What are those key decisions that you've made in your life that set you apart from everyone else? Kakaiba naman kasi talaga yung na-achieve niya, Aris, di ba? So, okay.
I think really yung family structure and yung generational experiences ng mga lola ko, lolo, even yung parents ko, again, did shape me a lot.
Yeah.
And yung lola ko, for example, she just finished second grade, born in 1932. Yung lolo ko, born in 1930, she completed fourth grade elementary education. And yung father ko, he just finished first year high school. And yung mother ko, she received yung associate's degree niya. And they had to migrate to survive, and they really didn't have that opportunity. And sa Pilipinas, kung wala kang pera, wala kang kwenta.
True.
And you're always being defined by how much money do you have, ilan yung sasakyan mo, etc. And in some cases, material things are being used to define who you are, not necessarily yung moral accomplishments mo, etc. etc. I think it's yung initial exposure ko sa ganitong klaseng life that I told myself, this is crazy, and I want to break this. And
nice.
as I progress and evolve, I've seen yung iba-ibang klaseng caliber ng mga Filipinos. Then I actually told myself, well, I want to be, as exceptional as possible. given yung passion and interest ko sa mga subject matters that I was looking at. And the other thing too that I want to add nung bata ako, really interesting. When I received my money sa pagita, do you remember yung mga, when we were young, may mga isang bibili ka ng piso, yung picture ni Jose Rizal and then meron siyang yung biography niya. I would literally read those after ako magsampagita. I would just read them over and over again. I probably had like 60. Lahat ng mga bayanis and presidents, what they did.
Amazing.
I think small things like that. I was reading them. I didn't really have the full grasp of what I was doing, but they kept me going. Life and death, service to the nation, experiences nila. I think over time they really shaped me that, well, there are different kinds of Filipinos outside sa Sampaguitaan na to. And I think that really, yun yung unang factor actually, yung generational experience ng family ko. I think it again, we work so hard for our family, and I think sa case ko, it's the same thing. I want to reestablish yung identity ng family ko, how it's viewed, how it's constructed. That yung father ko, of course, yung profile niya, I mean, I wanted to really, we have the same name too, by the way, Froilan Malit then. And he didn't have the same opportunity. He had to work as a labor truck driver in different provinces of the Philippines. And I just wanted to, especially mga kaibigan niya, I mean, they barely respected yung father ko because of that. And I think that really pushed the button sa akin na, no, this is not life. I can do so much better. I think that's what really compelled me initially. That's actually one. And then two is yung culture of excellence. I think it's really emphasized sa mga classrooms natin sa Philippines. When you were young, it's like you barely understand yung sinasabi ng mga teachers na ganito. But as you progress, as you evolve, you start to realize what they really meant. And then when you see important political figures out there like Miriam Defensor, Santiago, then you start to understand, right, how Filipinos can achieve global excellence. And I think that's what triggered me. And I remember vividly when I would see sa television yung mga Filipino na graduate sa Harvard, sa Oxford, etc. I mean, I would just say, maybe I can do that too at some point. I mean, I was like, and my sister even said, oh, you're hallucinating. And I just going. I think yung mga ganung klaseng exposure, that really triggered me. But I think the core nito really comes from my family's generational struggle to achieve better. And that's what triggered me. Yeah. It all goes back there.
What I like about what you shared there, Froilan, is, well, there are two key messages which stood out for me. One is that education is the great equalizer. You might have different backgrounds, but if you wanted to get some, I mean, if you wanted to attain something in life, you also need to invest in making yourself better. And for a lot of us, maybe that's education. And you got amazing, you got into really amazing schools. So I think that's one. And the other bit is you had a concept of role models from a young age. You were already looking up to people beyond the Sampaguita world or your immediate environment, and that propelled you on to greater heights. So even up to now, I think you had very strong role models, and so I think that's very inspiring for the rest of us.
What really struck me the most as well, Aris, is that listening to Froilan earlier, he really knows how to ask the right questions in his head. Because when he asks the right questions, like when he was at Stanford, right, and he was observing those kids, and he said, why can't I? Why not me? Right? And once you start asking that question to yourself, why not me? That's where your brain starts getting into the proactive mode. When you start acting, when you start winning. I mean, you've already won, actually, when you ask that question, why not me? I mean, I think that's a fantastic starting point. So, well done, Froilan. I mean, wow. Now he was sharing his story, getting into Cornell. So, what was life like in Cornell, Froilan? I mean, Cornell is Cornell.
Oh my God.
What was it like?
No, before I share my experience at Cornell, I mean, I think you rightly pointed out, the reframing aspect of it. I think So Philippines, like they won't even treat you seriously if you graduated technical university, not unless you're exceptionally gifted to like and you have
Mm-hmm.
something unique to offer to industry. But yung
Yeah.
time na yun, I think these things have just really forced me to look outside and say, I need to do something extra here, something different,
Yeah.
something that would make me stand out. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I did California, Cañada College. And then when I arrived Cornell,
Mm-hmm.
I had to struggle all over again. But
Okay.
itong point na to, I I had a bit more confidence, no?
Mm.
Sure, I didn't. I literally took out student loans,
Okay.
and at that time, my mother had a lot of challenges because
Mm-hmm.
you have other siblings. We can't take out a loan sa bahay, or you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, you have to adjust. And
Mm-hmm.
initially, she was against it actually, me going to Cornell. Not
Mm-hmm.
literally. I went to the library. I was crying, and one guy came up to me and said, "Why are you crying?" And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "I got accepted. Here's the letter. I had no money." And I literally begged the financial aid office to Cornell to help
Yeah.
me. And I
Wow.
arrived there, and 3 days later, I called her, and I started to Cornell. And I
It's
literally,
amazing.
yung weather, that's one challenge that I had. Two, yung
Mm-hmm.
social, economic, in demographics, Cornell,
Yeah.
it's a completely different world, very global,
Mm.
and high income bracket.
Right.
And there were times where I even didn't know what to wear sa mga events, or even sa mga job interviews or internship interviews. I had
Right.
no idea what to wear. Well, first of all, I didn't have money to
Yeah.
even wear a fancy jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And when we'd go for dinners, I also didn't have money. I literally had to like budget with what I have. Siguro,
Yeah.
nagsawa na siguro ako sa adobo nung time na yun. And no, I had to survive. I had to like really work with my
Amazing.
head because there's no turning back. I'm not
Yeah.
going back. I'm not going back to California. I had to fight. I made this decision,
It's
and
amazing.
I yung level of writing again, level of expectation is really
Mm.
high. I mean, it came to a point where I doubted myself during the first semester, right?
Really. Wow.
Literally, like, do I really belong? Like, wait, that's all. Yes, I think there were instances too where, especially during class discussions when I took courses in government,
Mm-hmm.
I there were cases where I didn't want to talk. I wanted to talk, but I was afraid that I might get stuck and not be able to fully articulate myself, and I end up embarrassing myself. Right?
Right. Right.
It, it was so empowering and humiliating at the same time that I had to really
Mm-hmm.
balance these emotions on a daily basis. Um,
Yeah.
Luckily, I found communities within Cornell. I found yung
Okay.
Cornell Filipino Association. I met my friend Lori there. She's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And even senior Filipino Americans who were
Mm-hmm.
studying law, and others too who came from the Philippines, and they were Philippines and they were doing the PhDs. I think
Yeah.
I kind of normalized, right?
Yeah.
Yung community sa akin, and I said, oh, I think I can do this too. I mean, it came to a point where
Mm-hmm.
first semester na transition na yon. I mean, it took some time,
Yeah.
but I really maximized all the resources there. I didn't really engage as much in the first semester because I just
Yeah.
wanted to get the grades and really prove to myself that, oh, actually, I do belong here. And surprisingly, I only felt that belonging like during my last year at Cornell.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, I think
Amazing. Amazing.
I think that these communities really state the kinds of standards that you should set up for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, and you
Right.
just keep questioning and questioning yourself. And I think that
Yeah.
really helped me set the bar even higher, as I
Mm-hmm.
met a lot of Cornell students who were well, basically some of them won Rhodes scholarships. They went to Cambridge and they went to Oxford. I think I
Mm-hmm.
met a lot of them. I think the difference is that at that time I was open to engage with all students. I didn't really confine myself
It's
within the Filipino
great.
community or the low income community. I just
Uh-huh.
kept engaging. I think people respected that. And I was very
Mm-hmm.
honest with myself. I mean, people would ask me, where are you from? What do you do? Or your parents, what do they do? I was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely be honest, I mean, I didn't have to fake it because I told them I came here on the basis of this, and this is what I want to do, and this
Yeah.
is what I hope to do. And I think people actually supported me. I met really good friends. Where 10 years later on, I even went to attend their weddings. My colleagues
Really
from Cornell. Yeah, I mean, I literally didn't have
amazing.
money, and in most cases, they had to pay for my dinner. And
Yeah.
so,
But my
yeah,
God, I
I
mean,
really I embraced my insecurity. I mean,
amazing.
I was very open about it. I didn't have to pretend because
Mm-hmm.
I understood this notion of scarcity and honesty and transparency
Yeah.
growing up in Pampanga. So I just really wanted to get it done and really deliver and actually prove to myself that yes, I
Mm-hmm.
can actually do it. And yeah, I think that was my time at Cornell.
I mean, that's just
Yeah,
amazing, Aries. No, I mean,
yeah.
I'm blown away by your sharing because again, um, it's the willpower. He kept saying earlier, Aries, that he didn't have the money. He didn't have a nice suit to wear during the events, but you had the willpower, Froilan. That was
Mhm.
that's priceless. And sometimes this is a good lesson for all of us, for Filipinos, who probably are going through a lot of insecurities. That's why they don't want to move forward in life because, oh, I don't have money, I don't have this, I came from this place and that place. And sometimes that's what's actually limiting the success of a person. Whereas based on what you were saying, I really could feel the passion, the vision, the willpower, the grit. And I think these are priceless. So, guys, if you're watching and you're going through something, you're at the crossroads right now, whether you're a student, an entrepreneur, a corporate executive, it doesn't matter, a parent, you may be probably going through a lot of questions in your head, a lot of insecurities, but here's Froilan sharing with us a lot of life lessons that we can actually apply in our own lives. So, Froilan,
Yeah.
that's really amazing. Aris, you were going to say something earlier as
Yeah,
well.
and let's not forget that Froilan came to Cornell to study, and he did amazingly well. And I think that
He
added to the
graduated with
respect.
distinction.
Absolutely, because had you let your constraints, your challenges, your insecurities get a better
Mhm.
of you, I guess the performance won't be as great. And yet, here
Yeah.
you are, very honest where
Mhm.
you came from. Here you are,
Mhm.
very honest as to what you don't have at that time. And
Mhm.
yet, you continued to deliver excellence every single step of the way.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that earned the respect of your cohorts.
And I also like what he said, Aris, that he didn't limit himself to the Filipino community. Instead, he reached out to different groups, different people, and that I think not sort of, but it absolutely expanded your mindset, the way you think. It's made you truly global, and that I think has also contributed to his success. So before we continue, I'd like to read some of the comments here. So Matet Malit says, "So proud of you, Poi." Matet Malit, is she your uh, who's Matet to
Oh,
you?
she's my sister, and she
Your
has an
sister.
equally impressive
Oh,
story. She's a
that's so sweet.
caregiver. She's a caregiver, and she landed at
All right.
Berkeley and graduated too. Yes,
Woohoo!
yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
what a
yeah.
family! Your family is just a brilliant one. So yes, Matet, yes, and then we have again June, who says, "Amazing! You're truly an inspiration, Froilan. Thanks for sharing your achievements and experiences. Proud Pinoy." And then Tinette and Aries, pwede ba magpa-autograph kay Froilan? Super hanga ako sa kanya. Froilan, you have fans na, o di ba?
Pasabay na rin ako, Froilan.
Yes, and also we have a comment from Catherine Ramos Once. Is that Once or tama ba? Or once? Catherine once. Catherine Once. Congrats, brother, mom. Congrats to brother, mom Matet. And then Matet also says, your sister says, during his interview at Cornell University, he had nothing. He met a couple at the airport and learned his intention going to New York, and they gave him $500 so he can continue his dream. Oh my God, Froy, are you gonna share with us
I
the
forgot-
story?
no, I forgot to tell that story actually
That's
during the
amazing.
I think during the so I was asked to be interviewed. So
Mm-hmm.
I had literally had no money at all. I mean, I was
Yeah.
shocked that
Yeah.
I took the plane
Mm-hmm.
and I met a couple, American couple,
Okay.
and they asked me, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to Ithaca, New York." And then they asked me so many questions, because at that time I wait, hold on. Yes, I was accepted already. I remember
Mm-hmm.
accepted, and I just didn't have the money, and I wasn't sure whether I would actually continue to pursue my goal
Well, you
at
applied for a
Cornell
scholarship. You applied for a scholarship at Cornell, did you?
for scholarships and for need-based grants. Actually,
Okay. All right. Okay.
it's both.
Okay.
And I told them the story, and I showed my papers, but I didn't know them at all. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember they actually wasn't 500. They gave you $5,000.
What?
Um,
How much?
yes,
Sorry.
$5,000, and they never
Five
told their name.
thousand dollars.
And
Which airport
yeah,
was that?
I
I need to go to that airport, Aries.
oh my god, they gave me that $5,000, and I literally refused to take the money because I didn't know them at all,
Right. Right. Right.
And yeah, I was nasa plane ako.
Amazing.
I was gonna go to Cornell, but I was in this uncertain position in my life where I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do this. There's major financial setbacks,
Mm.
and they stepped in, and I told them, look, if I fail to convince the financial aid department, then I
Mm-hmm.
might not have the money to stay for an extra day to
Mm-hmm.
Cornell, and
Yeah.
because of the whole cost of hotel, etc. I just told my story, and they read my papers. They saw acceptance letter call, and really they gave me the money, and then they never told me yung background nila. They were just
Mm-hmm.
generous American couple, and I still think about them actually.
Oh my God.
12 years later, yeah. Um,
Have you ever
in
gotten in touch with them after that?
no, no, no,
No.
never did.
What?
Yeah, Mhm.
My
Never did,
goodness. It's like
never
they're
did.
like your angels. They were like angels
Yeah,
to you. What?
never
Oh
did.
my God. My heart is breaking. I would,
Yeah,
and you didn't even get their names. You can find them
no,
on Facebook or
no,
anything like that.
no, not
Oh,
at all.
bless you, Froilan. I mean,
And
you're
I wish them
amazing.
well. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they must be really, really proud of you. I'm sure, they still remember you to this day for sure. Okay. All right. So that's Cornell. Now, what happened next? I mean, you moved to Oxford after how many years after graduating from Cornell?
so I think in time na yon, we had economic crisis United States, and it was quite
Mm.
tough to get jobs. And I think in time na yon, I was really, really determined to elevate yung training
Yeah.
ko.
Yeah.
And I've been exposed to mga colleagues ko who moved from Cornell to Oxford. And I think I've heard of Oxford before, of course. Pero alam mo yung idea na you're going to Oxford na ganon, to
Mm-hmm.
train and specialize sa region na to. And by the way, nung time ko sa Cornell, I was very fortunate to do a lot of these internship programs offered by the university.
Nice.
Yung alumni network nila just really opened yung window of opportunity. I want to thank si Bruce Gitlin. He's yung I initially interned as a paralegal intern sa law firm niya sa New York City
Yeah.
during my first year sa Cornell. He really exposed me. I mean, yung time na he was actually helping a lot of deaf clients who were about to be evicted from mga New York public
Mm-hmm.
housing units. So I
Yeah.
actually focused pro bono units niya as an
Mm-hmm.
undergraduate intern. So I really continued my work, especially advocacy sa mga low income uh,
Mm-hmm. That's so nice.
populations. And so that was my first year internship. And then I ended up doing more internships Costa Rica,
Oh
where
my
I,
God.
I, I taught English sa, um, sa elementary school
Mm-hmm.
for a month or so.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing sa Mexico. And then during yung final year ko, I returned to Philippines and I wrote yung senior honors thesis ko on yung effect ng brain drain sa mga rural villages sa Philippines with a focus on Pampanga, of course,
Mm-hmm.
during my undergraduate year.
Yeah.
And I think yung experience na to, really deep in my passion for labor relations, international
Yeah.
and comparative labor and
Mm-hmm.
migration. And
Yeah.
I think nung time na yun, I told myself I wanted to actually specialize the area na to. And I
Mm-hmm.
found professors who nung time na yun, were working on migration issues. And
Mm-hmm.
I met the Martin Roos,
Yeah.
who's now the director of Migration Policy Center at uh, um, U- sa European University Institute of Florence.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I literally went to his talks to Washington D.C. and I literally pulled together all my money, took the bus literally. I wanted to meet him and actually listen to talk niya.
Yeah.
And I developed yung passion na yon, and I realized that I think I should do this.
Yeah.
I didn't consult yung parents ko. I just, kasi my parents, they knew na I'm doing quite well, but pero wala sa kanila yung idea na he's doing this. Kasi nga, I didn't really open it sa MySpace and Friendster. I literally excluded myself. I was working on my goal silently.
Yeah.
Silently. I didn't
Amazing.
even have yung mga press to even cover it. No, I just refused to do all that. Kasi yung
Really.
time na yun, I felt na hindi pa ako hinog.
Hmm.
There's really no voice for me to even speak about these things with authority, a certain form of
Yeah.
legitimacy.
Right.
And I chose to pursue yung graduate work with Oxford precisely because I wanted to work with these specialists, and especially in migration issues. So I got accepted, and that's where I met the OPS family. Where I met Marcos Medina.
Yay!
You know?
And if not for Oxford Philippine Society, we wouldn't have met you. So Aris and I are
Yeah.
deeply honored to be connected to you. Because, like, I mean, wow, what a story. I mean, my mind is just gonna explode right now just listening to what you've been doing, even in between Cornell and Oxford. I mean, you've been
Yeah.
traveling the world, making an impact, a huge impact at that young age. I mean, my gosh, did you even have? I mean, sorry to ask you this, but did you even have a normal teenage life, or I mean, were you going out with friends? Were you partying, or you were just really in the library all the time?
No, I was a little bit of partying, but just a little bit only.
Oh,
Like,
okay, okay.
eating, but not crazy partying. No, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew
Just
I had
dining
to
out
pay
with
my.
friends.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like you have to pay your student loan, so you're gonna need to make sure that
All right, that's good.
you
Yeah.
worth it. So
That's right.
I was really exposed to mga the diversities of amazing students, globally drawn from these countries, and I mean, I've learned so much from them as much in mga classrooms.
You're right.
They taught me so many things. I mean, if you're exposed, for example, sa isang estudyante from, I don't know, like for example, sa Hong Kong or even Switzerland pursuing their undergraduate degree sa Cornell, and they would say, "No, I'm doing this internship, looking at yung effects ng ganyan-ganyan sa Latin America." I mean,
Right. I
yung
know.
composition, right? And I would
I know exactly.
yung composition or even yung diversity and concentration of these highly accomplished students. I think, I mean, they would literally pull all your insecurities and really, propel you to pursue even higher goals.
Exactly.
And when I
That's
arrived,
so
I
true.
just wanted to get my BA. Literally wanted to get my BA and work and actually.
And that's
pursue these
it.
goals.
Yeah.
And that's it. But then no, when you actually get there,
It
you'll
just keeps
pursue even
pushing
more.
and pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah. And I think at the same time, I had yung framework of scarcity, no? Yung sa pagsasampagin ako. I think that really helped me, stabilize and even, center yung approach ko towards life, no? And even my relationship with people. And yung nag-transition ako, so I also struggled kasi nga very different yung academic standards to Oxford, as we all know. And Marcos, again, Marcos.
Shout out to Marcos.
Marcos Calo Medina.
Marcos Calo Medina, hello. I'm going to forward this video to him because he's been really pushing me. Tinette, you gotta have Froilan in your FB Live. And I said, yes, I have already spoken with him. So anyway, okay, so you were saying.
No, Marcos really mentored me. I mean, he's
Yeah.
a very very good friend. He
Yeah.
really shaped the way I write actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I met even more highly accomplished students, and I think in time na yon, I was able to at least narrow and specialize the area ko. And in time na yon, I also expanded yung understanding ko yung Philippine migration experience, etc.
Yeah.
And yung challenge ko nung time na yun sa Oxford is mainly um, how do I connect sa community na to right after Oxford, sa industry na to? Because
Yeah.
I mean, I came out of Oxford, I think I was 22 years old, right? Yung degree ko
22.
na 22,
Bata.
right? I had yung degree na to, Cornell and Oxford, but wala pa akong ano, yung standard na professional experience. And I initially tried to reach out to mga senior scholars sa community ko. I struggled kasi I didn't have publications. I didn't have any presentations. I had networks, but of course, yung initial starting point mo is you'll be a graduate research assistant, etc. And nung time na yon, I mean, Marcos even told me like, are you ready na ba to pursue yung doctorate? And initially, I kept saying, yeah, I wanted to do it, etc., etc. But then, yung father niya, yung late na father ni Marcos actually helped me gain a deeper understanding. Sabi niya sa akin, well, why don't you work muna? Kasi context matters, right? Especially when you write, you want to pursue doctorate, for example. Sometimes your positionality changes over time depending on your experience. And yung time na I decided to, I told my advisor about this too, and I chose to be in the Middle East. So yun yung entry ko sa Middle East actually. So that's where I initially apply yung experience ko. Yung entry point ko sa Middle East actually started in 2009 when I was a graduate research assistant sa Dubai School of Government. So I worked with a Saudi professor. Ang pangalan niya Khalid Al Yahya. He is now advisor to the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, actually. And I helped him sa research work now on corporate governance and public policy issues sa Saudi. And nung natapos ko yung internship na yun, went to Oxford, and I came back to the region. And I initially worked sa Zayed University as a researcher. Iba yung topics na hinandle ko, but yet I continued yung work ko. And I attended a lot of conferences. I didn't really engage in my senior scholars because I knew that I didn't really have anything to offer them. Because I felt in order for me to be at the equal level with a lot of these senior scholars, I need to have something, right? Because I think for a lot of young people, I think nagmamadali sila. They don't really have that patience. They just want to go ahead. But to Middle East, it's like you have to be careful how you introduce yourself and who introduced you, actually, right? You have to be as strategic as possible. So I kept myself isolated. I kept producing a lot of papers, engaging in some conferences, and it came to a point where I attended one of the government-run conferences on migration issues, and I questioned yung slow legal reforms in Gulf countries. And nung time na yon, yung Philippine ambassador to the UAE, our ambassador, Grace Princesa, she was shocked kasi nga I was questioning yung policies, and of course, as a senior diplomat, hindi sila pwedeng mag-comment sa mga ganyang issues. These are highly sensitive political matters. She pulled me aside and she said, anong pangalan mo? And maybe we could work together.
And then, that's amazing.
She has an intern. She took me from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. And that's when I started, I even lived with our ambassador, Abu Dhabi.
Really?
Yes, for many, many months. We dissected migration issues. And I think I really thank her so much. She's currently our ambassador to the Vatican City. Yes. And she actually shaped, again, yung shaping process ko, it came in multiple levels. And at this point, she really helped me better understand yung language of diplomacy, language of
Mhm.
international relations, in terms of how we
Yeah.
view migration. And I owe a huge debt sa kanya. She legitimized me, introduced me to the community, and really
Mhm.
gave me a more deeper institutional and diplomatic understanding of these issues
Yeah.
that we face the region, not just UAE, but also across the Middle East and Asia,
Right.
Africa, Latin
Mhm.
America, etc. That
Yeah.
really helped me sa mga opportunities that actually were given.
Yeah.
Yung time na yun, I worked sa kanya. I think
Mhm.
after 2.5 years to 3 years, I moved from there sa UAE Ministry of
Mhm.
Labor. And I
Okay.
was the first Filipino to be hired as a senior specialist, international relations and project
Mhm.
manager sa
Yeah.
UAE government. And oh yeah, I handled different projects.
Amazing.
So yung project, one of the projects I handled is yung skilling program. So a lot of
Mhm.
workers who arrived in the Middle East
Yeah.
often didn't have proper training and certificates.
Mhm.
And for example, sa construction industry, the way you do construction sa Philippines or Sri Lanka is very different, right? So
Yeah.
wala silang common qualifications, frameworks, and standards Philippines sa
Mhm.
construction. So my
Yeah.
task was to run yung pilot study and just to simply justify sa federal government na
Mhm.
certification matters actually. That certification can lead to less injury, less accidents, etc., etc. So I
Yeah.
ran that for a 3.5, traveled the world nung nag-work ako sa Ministry of
Amazing.
Labor. And I think what's interesting doon is yung staff ng mga Filipino na nag-work sa ministry na yun, I also look like them, right? The
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
is right? So there's always
Right.
sort of like raised dimension, right? And especially
Yeah.
like when medyo malaki yung office ko na binigay sa akin ng ministry, thank you sa Ministry of Labor. And I remember vividly when I had to attend different meetings, there are two things that were going against me, no? One is yung
Yeah.
age ko. Two, yung ethnicity. Specifically, working sa federal government na yon, right?
Okay.
Yung government,
Right.
yung boss, I mean, he did empower me. He did help me get in position
Mhm.
na yon and really execute my job effectively.
Yeah.
I think sa Middle East kasi, a lot of Filipinos, I would say a lot of Filipinos, segmented yung mga occupational opportunities. Hold on one
Yeah.
second.
Mhm.
Occupational opportunities. So in a way, it's a highly racialized labor market
Mhm.
where Filipinos are segmented in certain job occupations as domestic workers, retail workers, construction workers.
Yeah.
So when they see me, especially yung mga all nationalities, they try to box you
Yeah.
in, right? Try to
Mhm.
put you in a box na ito yung Filipino, etc.
Filipino,
etc.
right?
I
Mhm.
mean, sometimes they even ask me kung sino yung kamit nila, and then they realize na ako yung kamit nila. and
And
I mean, I
sobrang
don't get
bata.
offended at all.
Too young. Very
Yeah,
young.
and I didn't get offended kasi nga, I mean, it's
Yeah.
really not their,
Mm.
problem. I think it's something that the social culture
Yeah,
has really
sure.
been normalized. And
Mhm.
some of them too, I became friends with them, even attended their weddings as well. I like attending
Yeah.
weddings.
Aw.
So, and I think nung time ko sa ministry na yun, I think that also helped me engage with a lot of our Philippine officials, both
Mhm.
Department of Labor and Employment
Yeah.
and Department of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
I think that really helped me better engage sa kanila and also share some insights in terms of how should we actually frame yung Middle East given yung interest natin sa
Mhm.
migration issues, as in,
Right.
interstate bargaining
Yeah.
process, right? Kasi we have
Mhm.
interest pagdating sa export dito, trade,
Mhm.
especially agriculture, access to cheaper gas and oil,
Yeah.
even joint military interest as well sa region na to. So,
Wow.
yung experience ko ngayon, really shifting from a sending country sa embassy natin to a more receiving country, really gave me a more deeper understanding of the Gulf region. Kasi
Mhm.
yun din yung time na I've exploited yung location ko where I literally delivered so many lectures, both
Mhm.
sa Middle East, Asia, and Europe.
Yeah, you're everywhere. You are really
Yeah.
everywhere.
And I think it really came back having yung clear vision ko when I was nung nasa Cornell ako, I think I made yung firm commitment to really focus on mga issues na to. And I think that really helped me um, deal with tough moments, tough, uncertain challenges. But when you have a clear vision, and sometimes you don't need to have a clear vision. Sometimes you develop it over time, no?
Exactly.
And we progress. Yung sa akin, I just, yung instinct mo na, oh, this is it. Kasi nga, when you know what you want, it's a lot easier to actually just like say, oh, this is relevant, this is not relevant, this is relevant, this is not relevant. It makes your life so much easier, especially when you're very, very honest with yourself, right? And nung nag-saturate yung experience ko, I joined the think tank and I kept going. At the time na yun, I couldn't really publish. When you work for someone, you can't really publish, especially topics involving your work mo. So I joined yung Gulf labor market migration, and I kept writing and publishing. I edited a book in 2019, published and peer-reviewed, mga book chapters, policy articles. And I think in time then I realized, okay, I think I need to take this to the next level. So that's where I ended up at Cambridge, to really bring together all these experiences and really gain a proper training in international relations. And this is where I am ngayon. And so now I'm really specializing in yung linkages between diplomacy, rights, migration, GCC, Philippine relations.
That's very interesting, Iris. I mean, go ahead.
I'm just blown away. I mean,
I'm
you
blown
are
away
one
myself.
busy man.
And he has really made a massive impact in the industry and, globally as well, no? So
Indeed. I'm just curious, Froilan. Rights Corridor.
Yeah.
When did you find the time to set this up, and what's the vision behind this?
I think yung rights corridor, I mean, I've had this perspective actually for a long time. I mean, I built different communities, right? Even field of politics, field of academia, even advocacies, community organizing. I mean, I've seen yung difficulty of a lot of young scholars or even highly accomplished scholars, especially from the developing world. They struggle to get into these conferences or even share their insights. You have to compete some slots, that's for you. And even though they have equally fascinating, equally relevant perspectives, if they can't really package their writing, their perspectives, based on mga gatekeepers in the West, it'll be very difficult for them to engage or even be known. So yung main objective talaga ng Rights Corridor is to really democratize access to insights and perspectives, lalo na sa issues with migration issues dito sa Middle East. I've spent, now I can fully claim I spent nearly a decade here, and the struggle for a lot of researchers, academics, even senior officials, is yung lack of data and lack of contextual insights on mga issues dito. And I really built around yung Rights Corridor na to really offer free inside perspectives of what's happening dito sa Asia and Gulf actually. And there's a specific segment, the labor rights, human rights, and migration. And recently I've increasingly partnered with a lot of amazing rights organizations kagaya ng OFW Watch Italy, and at the same time yung DAWN, yung Development Action Women Network. And yung sa event na yun, these are very Philippine-specific focused issues impacting diaspora dito sa Middle East. We've had a chance to interview or even had a webinar with our former Supreme Court Justice, Carpio, Mr. Colmenares, like leading Filipino activists who are basically working on issues that really affect the Philippine national interests, specifically in South China Sea, in West Philippine Sea, terrorism, etc. And then even inviting specialists from different parts of the world, especially young and up-and-coming scholars. I knew what they actually feel like when they struggle through these conferences, and I wanted to give that platform sa kanila and help them connect and share these insights. I think in COVID na to really triggered me even more so to intensify an effort ko. Kasi nga, I think time na if these virtual webinars are free and available, I think it really be beneficial to mga senior officials who are making tough policy decisions on migration and labor market issues, and at the
Yeah.
same time inspiring more
True.
younger generations to look into these issues. So yeah, I think yung ano nila talaga is yung culmination of struggle ko rin to access
Mhm.
senior officials,
Yeah.
senior researchers, and really these ideas. I think it came to a point where I said, you know what, let me create something more tangible, something
Yeah.
that's like
Mhm.
more inspirational to mga younger researchers, not just Filipinos, but
Yeah.
also other nationalities. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Froilan, okay. I mean, what's next for you? Okay, so you're in Cambridge, no? Now taking your studies there. What's next for you?
So what's next for me is really to finish yung doctorate ko in international
Mm-hmm.
relations, and I do hope to spend perhaps like additional 5 years in the Middle East. I wanted to solidify my training a bit more of the region, especially in Arabic language. It's
Yeah.
very essential for me,
Wow.
and hopefully return to Philippines. I do actually want to go back to Philippines, and I want to serve element natin. And I mean, I
I
developed
can't
and gained
wait. I can't wait for
experience.
you to come back and serve here and bring in this wealth of knowledge and experience and brilliance that you have. I mean, I can't wait. Aries,
Thank you.
right?
Oh, of course. I
I
mean, you need to shine like a brighter as a star and inspire more and help
I
Yeah.
more
think
in your journey.
I think Jeanette in Aries, I think I've been very firm sa goal ko.
Yeah.
Nung time ko sa community college, I really wanted to go back and serve
Mm-hmm.
together natin. I think I have always have a very
Mm-hmm.
clear vision to return and serve.
Yeah.
And I think there's alam mo yung no greater honor, right, than really serving your country.
Exactly.
And I think it's about time for me at some point to actually return and really contribute, especially in issues related to migration and child labor to the Philippines. I think yung
Mm-hmm.
mga issues I wanted to specialize actually sa
Right.
bansa.
What's your time frame for that, Froilan, to come back and serve? I mean, do you have any idea? Is that going to be for the next 5 years,
I think
10
between
years?
5 and 10 years. Yeah.
10 years, right? I guess that right because you're still, what I love about your experience is that you've gone really deep, in your craft. You've specialized so much. You've been in the best institutions in the world, but you've also gone wide by traveling so much, exposing yourself to various cultures, globally. So, because Aries, sometimes you can either, you can just be either of the two. You can be very specialized, but you're limited here in the Philippines or in the UK or in the Middle East alone. Or you could be a global entrepreneur, but really not specializing in anything. But with Froilan here, it's really a good balance of being a specialist, in his craft, and then also being out there globally. He's had a lot of experience. So I can't wait for you to come back to the Philippines and start being part of the, of the daily lives of people. I mean, I can't wait. I can't wait for you to be the president of the Philippines.
Oh my God, no. No.
Right. Nah.
Okay.
Oh,
Aris,
I
what
do have
about
a question
you?
for. Well, I do have a question for Froilan because with
Mm-hmm.
all that wealth of experience and
Yeah,
understanding of the Middle East, what's your message to our kababayas? I know that a lot
yeah,
of them are tuned
correct.
in at the moment, and there's a huge chunk of our labor force currently working in the Middle
Mm-hmm.
East. So,
Yeah.
any message, any things that you'd like to share with them at this stage?
Um, sa mga kababayan po natin sa Middle East, it's a tough time for a lot of OFWs, especially ngayon sa COVID. I think yung main message ko would be to really understand yung mga current reforms that's happening in
Mm-hmm.
sa Middle East, specifically sa Saudi, UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait, and look into resources available sa established institutions sa host country and yung mga diplomatic missions natin. And really having a closer engagement sa mga institutions, it's very, very critical kasi sa Middle East, isang error mo lang, it could really deport you back to Pilipinas. And laws here are much tougher, especially cultural laws and financial laws dito. And yung pong pinaka-message ko to for all of Ws is to be very, very cognizant no, sa mga legal reforms na nangyayari dito. Siguro, kung gaano sila ka-focus sa panonood sa teleserye, I do hope they would put the same emphasis sa mga legal reforms na nangyayari dito. I think it's very important to use, kasi dito most Filipinos, they have smartphones. I think they need to strategically use these and actually help them empower themselves with the appropriate information na nangyayari dito. Yeah.
All right. And what's the best way to be kept abreast, to be updated on these changes? Is it the Philippine Embassy, or are there other channels by which they can tap into these reforms? Because I know that these are changing on a regular basis. So how do our kababayans keep up?
I think the good things sa Middle East is that, of course, meron silang bilingual yung mga communication materials nandito, Arabic and English, and our embassies, or even in the host country, they actually translate different rules and procedures into specific languages catered to mga migrant communities, including Filipinos. And our embassies here are actually working day and night pagdating sa mga ganito, especially mga polo offices dito. And I think nandun yung information. I think yung issue sometimes is yung focus. Minsan very challenging sa mga ibang Filipinos kasi iba-iba yung klase ng work ng mga tao, and yung with pre-COVID kasi very much closer yung interactions ng mga Filipino, especially in physical interaction, was a lot easier for them, especially mga diasporic communities, sa simbahan, sa mga Filipino gathering spaces. Pero ngayon wala na yon. So now you really have to strive to be proactive pagdating sa updating yourself pagdating sa mga information na to. So I would suggest na they have to really subscribe sa mga Facebook virtual groups ng ating mga konsulado. They've been working very, very hard pagdating sa closing information gap or asymmetric information sa mga labor markets and rules and reforms dito sa Gulf region. I think yun yung pinaka main suggestion ko. And if they have any specific questions, make sure to really, really take advantage yung mga dial hotlines sa mga consulates, or even drop a message sa kanila po. Yes.
Great,
Jeanette?
that's great. Thank you for that, Froilan. But before we wrap up, Aris, I think maybe you can read this message from Matet, the sister of Froilan. Would you like to read that for us?
Yeah. So Matet says that at the time, Froilan worked 6 hours sa government ng Dubai, and he would drive sa Abu Dhabi to meet with Filipino government officials. Tapos babalik na naman tapos kakain lang sandali. Tapos you were also doing work with OFWs na may problema with their employers. Matutulog ka, Froilan, 2 a.m. thinking about the problems of our kababayans and how you can help them. And Matet would ask you kung hindi ka ba napapagod, and you just said, if you can help others, why not? And you love what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah. Wow, Froilan. Amazing.
I think one of the things that I really emphasize talaga is I kept telling myself, I said, if you love what you do, every sunrise matters, right?
That's
and
true.
Nung time ko dito sa ministry, especially when I worked sa Ministry of Labor ng UAE, I really took advantage yung institutional role ko doon. I think a lot of Filipinos looked up to me and say, that actually is possible. That can be achieved, right?
Yeah.
At that type of work, Filipinos can function. And nandun naman tayo, we've always been there, but I think yung exposure ng ibang tao, I think that actually made it a bit more difficult for others to pursue yung mga ganung klaseng career. Kasi for a lot of us, we focus on yung mga careers related sa, of course, engineering, nursing. It's a very critical, labor-intensive industry. Ganito. But what about yung other industries, right? Aside from law, for example, right? We have fabulous political scientists, sociologists, etc. I think yung mga areas of career na ganito na hindi sila na-expose, yung
Yeah.
iba. And nung time ko talaga, yung sabi mo nga, Tinet, I really, I went really deep sa mga issues na ganito. I
Mm-hmm.
want to understand
Definitely.
what do these regulations mean at the frontline level. I think that's what my sister was talking about kasi nga, I ended up actually taking her in dito sa UAE, and actually she ended up interning din sa embassy natin, and we looked
Mm-hmm.
into these issues actually very closely. And I mean, yung ginawa ko is I really created different
Mm-hmm.
mechanisms to educate OFWs pagdating sa mga what happened kung, let's say, hindi ka binayaran ng employer mo for 6 months, ano yung
Mm-hmm.
mga recourse nun, or what happens when you
Right.
run away ka, ano yung cause and implications
Right.
and consequences nun. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to go face to face sa mga ganitong issues.
Mm-hmm.
So at least I could really bridge yung, not just yung academic discourse
Mm-hmm.
nito, but yung policy discourse niya. I think that really helped me more
Nice.
actually as a young academic to
Mm-hmm.
engage sa mga international forums na ganito, and really engage sa
Yeah.
mga senior officials natin who are closely looking at these issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really solidified yung perspective ko on these specific issues. And I think, and I do want to use itong existing knowledge and perspective na to really to better improve yung mga future policies natin sa Philippines pagdating sa migration.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Froilan. I mean, Froilan, we can spend hours and hours and hours just listening to you, to your stories, to your wealth of knowledge and tips to all of us. But maybe we can end this conversation. But before, after the conversation, Froy, if you can just stick with us, with me and Aries, in the studio for about 5 minutes max after this. But yeah, so guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching again, we'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight, listening to Froilan's very inspiring story and tips, and there's so much more that we can learn from him. So Froilan, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to invite you for, maybe speaking engagements, how do they reach you? Of course, I know how to reach you, but I'd like for you to share that, because I'm gonna flash that on the screen right now. If they want to invite you to do virtual talks and stuff like that.
Oh, I think a lot of people normally just email me or send me a Facebook message or LinkedIn message, and I'm
Okay.
very, very open to sharing
Okay.
my
So they
And
can
can we
just add you
also
on. Mhm. Yes,
sorry
Aries.
can
Yeah,
you
no, that's
also
fine.
can you also do it via the consultation global compass, because we are building a community, and if there's a way by which
Absolutely.
they can tap into that channel so that they can reach into
Correct.
experts like yourself, would you be
Mhm.
open to that, Froilan?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Aries, maybe you'd like to share a little bit about Consult Asia Compass to our viewers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think hearing from the master himself, Froilan Malit Jr., a number of lessons that he has gone
Mhm.
through this journey of his, it just strengthens the message of Compass, by which all there
Absolutely.
will be inequalities in this world. What
Mhm.
Froilan demonstrated is that he was able to address the gaps. He was able to focus on asking the right questions and
Mhm.
understanding what resources are out there that will help him bridge these gaps, create opportunities
Mhm.
for himself, and of course, he's also gracious enough and generous enough to pay it forward by
Mhm.
sharing his expertise, experience, and that is the
Yeah.
essence of consultation global compass as well. We are
Mhm.
one global community who are happy to share what we have, happy to share
Yes.
experiences so that we can create opportunities for other kababayans out there. And we will be posting more in our Compass Facebook page, so it's now available. And we're also posting this episode onto that page. So thank you once again for the opportunity, Froilan, to listen,
Great.
to learn from you and be inspired by your story. Mabuhay ka.
Absolutely. Mabuhay ka, Froilan. And thank you very much. So, to all our friends and family and associates who are watching us tonight, please do not forget to like our Facebook page. We have the Consult Asia Global United Kingdom Facebook page. I mean, if you search for Consult Asia Global on Facebook, it's all there. Please don't forget to like our, as well as my Facebook page, Tinette Curtis, where you're viewing this from. And of course, just to give an idea, to give the audience an idea, what Consult Global, we are a training development company. We specialize in, training our, fellow Filipinos and even people from all over the world on soft skills such as communication, customer service, sales, personality development. We offer coaching services as well if you'd like to. If you're planning to move overseas and you'd like to learn a little bit about global business, we can coach you on those things. So if you need more information, just check the website that you can see on the screen right now. And as Ari said, please also like our Consult Asia Compass Facebook page, where probably, hopefully, Froilan will be one of our resource persons in that community. So again, Froilan, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. It's almost 2 hours, and I felt like we were only chatting for 10 minutes. So thank you very much for that. And Aries, of course, my wonderful co-host from the UK. I don't know, gentlemen, if you noticed, but our background right now is our alma mater. Right? You see the Oxford Radcliffe camera background there, and I just miss you guys so much. I miss our OPS, our Oxford Philippine Society, and Marcus will definitely. I think he's still sleeping. But he will be watching this episode definitely. So again, thank you so much to everyone who left comments in our comment section. To all those who watched us, thank you very much. And we will announce more updates on our social media pages. Again, my name is Tinette Curtis. Thank you very much and have a nice evening. Bye.